Welcome to this Saturday Travel and History Tip, and I want to tell you something really exciting. At least it's exciting for me. I want to tell you that danasbooks.net is finally in gear. It's taken me a while to get that website set up, but I want you to check it out. There's a section on my books, the Eastern Edition, Central Edition, and Western Edition of Off and On the Beaten Path, the unclassic road trip, and our featured videos, our latest videos, and the recaps of the Travel and History Tips are provided on these pages. The new edition is the recipes section. I think you will all enjoy that. We have a section on beverages and smoothies and meals and side dishes and desserts and fun foods. There are some text recipes and there are some video recipes. I hope you enjoy the new site. We are knocking out the parks in the state of Massachusetts. We have done a Saturday travel and history tip on the Saugus Ironworks National Historic Site, Springfield Armory National Historic Site, the Adams National Park, Frederick Law Olmsted National Historic Site, the Longfellow National Historic Site, and last week we toured the Salem Maritime National Historic Site. And this week we were at the Minuteman National Historical Park. The opening battle of the Revolution is brought to life as visitors explore the battlefields and structures associated with April 19, 1775, and witness the American Revolutionary spirit through the writings of the Concord authors. The American Revolution battles at the country towns of Lexington and Concord remain alive at this park. The battles were precipitated by the British attempt to arrest rebel leaders John Hancock and Samuel Adams. Walk across North Bridge in Concord, where the shot heard round the world was fired on April 19, 1775, and see the Minuteman statue. Ralph Waldo Emerson declared this famous quote many years after the battle. Historians will forever hold dear the time when the unbridled struggle for freedom by 3,500 colonial musket-brandishing militiamen clashed with 1,700 British redcoats. The main battle occurred at Lexington Green, but the famed Minuteman, America's first soldiers, hid all along the way from Boston, striking the unsuspecting redcoats. We strolled along the 5-mile tree-lined dirt and clay battle road trail, where the Americans fought valiantly. At Lexington, see the capture site of Courier Paul Revere, with fifes and drums playing in your head. Enjoy the hands-on activities and guided tours provided by the in-costume park staff. Boston-born Paul Revere carried the news of the April 18, 1775 approach of the British troops to Lexington and Concord. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem, The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, commemorates his fearless ride. Revere had taken part in the destruction of the tea, also known as the Boston Tea Party, that was instigated at the Old South Meeting House and carried out on December 16, 1773. Overtaxed and underrepresented colonists opposed the British tax on tea. Therefore, the Sons of Liberty, angry locals, overturned 3 shiploads of East India Company tea, valued at 15,000 British pounds, into the Boston harbor. Besides being a courier for the Continental Congress, riding between Boston and Philadelphia, Revere printed the first continental money in 1775 and was a silversmith. From 1770 to 1800, Revere owned what is now Boston's oldest structure. It was built in 1680. He also fathered 16 children. The British casualties totaled 273 and the colonial casualties totaled 96. The park provides a decent amount of history about those 2 infamous days. The Battle Road Trail is the highlight of the park, and there are several places to access that. The visitor center is always a good place to start when visiting any national park to get information on where to go and what to do based on how long you have. And here is a map of the Battle Road. And along the Battle Road, you'll find pullouts and placards filled with historical information. Do allow yourself time to read all the beautiful placards that are set up along the battlefield road. And you will find one place is the capture point of Paul Revere. And it wasn't just Revere, it was Dawes and Prescott. And you'll have to read on to find out what happened to these 3 men at 1:30 a.m. April 19th, 1775. The decade-long political feud between the British government and the American colonists, determined to retain their rights as British subjects, came to a devastating climax as British regulars clashed with colonial militia and Minutemen. The fighting that began that day soon grew into a war for independence that lasted more than 8 years. The story of Minuteman is more than just the events that took place at the North Bridge and along the Battle Road in 1775. Minuteman is also the story of an evolution of the ideals of freedom and liberty. There we go again. Why do they stick that word in? It's the story of the ideals. Skip that. Minuteman is also the story of the ideals of freedom and liberty and new notions of cultural independence and citizen responsibility, which led to a revolution in American literature the following century. The ideals of both revolutions continue today and serve as an inspiration to people throughout the world. Though most of the landscape of eastern Massachusetts was open farmland at the time of the battle in 1775, stone walls, houses, and outbuildings provided some cover to Minutemen attacking the British column. Daily life for the people who lived along the Old Bay Road changed forever with that battle, and many of the houses along the road known since 1775 as Battle Road are still standing today. There are 11 of these special dwellings preserved as part of the park. In addition, the park honors 19th century American literature at the Wayside, a two-story clapboard home. Louisa May Alcott grew up at the home, wrote her first published works, and drew inspiration for Little Women there. The home was also once part of the Underground Railroad. The Wayside is the home where Nathaniel Hawthorne ended his writing days. Nathaniel Hawthorne wrote The Scarlet Letter, House of Seven Gables, which we talked about both of those in our previous Saturday Travel and History Tip when we visited Salem. He and his family owned the house from 1852 through 1869, and he is the one who called it the Wayside. Born in Concord, author Henry David Thoreau wrote of the scenery in this historic area. We also visited the Orchard House, the home of Little Women, and while there, guess what we bought? Yes, a copy of Louisa May Alcott's Little Women. Sleepy Hollow Cemetery is a rural cemetery located on Bedford Street near the center of Concord. The cemetery is the burial site of a number of famous Concordians, including some of the United States' greatest authors and thinkers, especially on a hill known as Author's Ridge. And yes, we did go to Author's Ridge. This cemetery is a prime example of 19th century rural New England cemeteries. Frederick Law Olmsted, who we talked about several Saturday Travel and History Tips back, is partially credited with the professionalization of landscape architecture and design of the 17-acre core of the cemetery. Ralph Waldo Emerson gave a principal address at the September 29, 1855 dedication of the ceremony for Sleepy Hollow Cemetery. On April 19, 1855, the anniversary of the 1775 Revolutionary shot heard around the world, the community organized a tree bee and volunteers planted over 100 trees. It was originally called Sleepy Hollow by local citizens. Townspeople, including local transcendentalist Ralph Waldo Emerson and Henry David Thoreau and author Nathaniel Hawthorne and his wife Sophia, used Sleepy Hollow as a favorite spot for evening walks. While planning for Sleepy Hollow's transformation into a cemetery, designers sought to maintain the natural beauty of Concord's first large designed landscape set aside for public use. On the area, as I've mentioned, is known as Author's Ridge. You can find the graves of Alcott, Hawthorne, Thoreau. Near the apex of the cemetery is Cat's Pond, a man-made body of water laid out by Henry David Thoreau. In 1860, a year after the pond's completion, Thoreau, noticing lilies and other plants growing in the pond, meditatively observed, "In the midst of death, we are in life." Sleepy Hollow inspired the writings of Emerson, Hawthorne, Thoreau, and even became memorialized in William Ellery Channing's poem, Sleepy Hollow. And I've included that poem here if you would like to pause and read his poem. But I am going to end with Henry Wadsworth Longfellow's poem. "Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere on the 18th of April in 75. Hardly a man is now alive who remembers that famous day and year. He said to his friend, 'If the British march by land or sea from the town tonight, hang a lantern aloft in the belfry arch of the North Church tower as a signal light. One if by land and two if by sea, and I on the opposite shore will be, ready to ride and spread the alarm through every Middlesex village and farm for the country folk to be up and to arm.'" Emerson wrote these words, which are inscribed at the base of the Concord's Minutemen statue. "By the rude bridge that arched the flood, their flag to April's breeze unfurled. Here once the embattled farmers stood, and fired the shot heard round the world." American history. Learn it. Love it. Appreciate it. Don't let them steal our history. Share our American history. If you appreciate our content, tell others and repost on your social platforms. And don't forget to look up my new website, danasbooks.net. Thank you.